we can see I've stacked everything as a column over at the side. So you start with anything that doesn't belong anywhere, we stick it in a thing called the system. So here's a night class application that is being done for a local college here. And they got into terrible trouble. They couldn't get their relationships and their tables and everything to add up properly. So I helped them with this. So at the highest level, you have a thing called a category. Everything in the college they do in the night classes fits into a category. So that's the first object that they've got. Also in here, you have the user types. You have administrators, teachers, and students. We'll come to those later. So if we look at what's inside a category, you answer a series of questions. What is a category connected to where there's one to many? And the answer is courses. Each category has multiple courses. Each category has the following data items, a description and a name. If I'm editing a category, what can I add? I can add a course. If I have multiple courses, I can select one of those courses. So these are the things you can select. So these questions are saying, if you're in the middle of editing one of these, what else can you do? Well, I can add a new course or I can select an existing course. And then there's a few questions about who's able or allowed to do these things. So who can add a new category? Only the administrator. They're the only one who can edit it, and they're the only one who can delete it. But people can select categories at any time. So the admin, the student, and the teacher users can select. The next item down we might look at is the course. This is where they were having troubles. A course belongs to just one category, but it has many classes because their classes run at different times and different semesters and so on. What sort of items do you want to put in a course? You know, the name, the description, the price, blah, 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 blah. If you're looking at a course, you can add a class or you can select a class. Only teachers are allowed to add courses. Only teachers are allowed to edit. Anybody else who sees a class will only see a read-only version of it, and only the administrator can do the deletes. But everybody can select one. If they see a list of courses, they can select, and also they can do searches. Searches are more complicated than select lists. It's where you put in some criteria. So if you're allowed to search, we want to know what search criteria are you going to use? Well, there's a search text, a date range, a start date and an end date, or which categories does it belong to, or which days of the week does the course run on. And this gives you your search criteria, and then it goes up, off, and searches. So as I said, you work your way down. You're saying that each course has multiple classes, but each class is associated with a single day of the week and a single semester. There are 4 semesters in the year. And then you go along and say, well, what things can you add? If you're looking at a class, you can, if you're a student, you can add an enrollment and so on. And when we got down to trying to figure out how students enroll in classes, that's when we figured out where they were having problems, because I put in this object called an enrollment. So a student who wants to join a class creates an object called an enrollment. They didn't have that. And as a result, they had a many-to-many relationship between students and classes. And because multiple classes had multiple students, and it's very hard to deal with those kind of many-to-many. And so when you fill in all of this detail, item by item, object by object, then the system will generate these diagrams for you. And this is the bit that I want to ask you guys about. In theory, as a software engineer, if I am given these 2 diagrams, then I know how to use that to build the entire application, right? The object model tells me that a category has many courses, a course has many classes, a class can have many reviews, each review is done by a single student. A student has many enrollments, but each enrollment only has 1 class, and so on. It gets all the relationships organized. I can build a database from that, and I've been able to get AI, Coda AI, to build the tables from this. But here's the other thing, is that it also works out what the workflow is. If I log in as a student, here's me logging in as a student, I see the student screen, which shows me all the courses all the enrollments. So I can select one of the enrollments that I have and I can delete it, or I can search which courses are available by going into the search course screen. So this is a button, brings up the search course criteria. I enter the criteria, it shows me a sublist, and eventually I end up in a single course. And then I can say, okay, I want to take this course and I want to make an enrollment out of it. So I select one of the classes for one of the nights, say I want to go on the Wednesday night, and then there's a button saying new enrollment, and then I get to fill in the details for an enrollment. The other diagram it generates for you automatically is the entity relationship diagram. So with those three diagrams, I know that in theory, as a software engineer, I can build most of this application. And then we're down to fiddling around with the various aspects of what the different dialogues are going to look like